Iran's greatest strength has tragically transformed into its most harrowing vulnerability. The elaborate underground cities that once offered sanctuary have now become lethal traps. Tunnel entrances have collapsed. Exits have been bombed into oblivion, effectively severing any link to the outside world. Cut off from reinforcements, unable to fire missiles or retreat, the 1 million-strong Iranian army finds itself engulfed by a wave of terrifying panic sweeping through these subterranean labyrinths. Nearly one-third of the army remains completely trapped within underground headquarters, helpless and isolated. For 4 decades, Iran meticulously prepared for this moment. They excavated deep tunnels carved into mountains, constructing hundreds of kilometers of sprawling underground corridors. Beneath the surface, lying 80 to 90 meters underground, they concealed thousands of missiles, launch pads, ammunition depots, and command centers, forming what they proudly called the Missile Cities. According to reports from the Center for Strategic and International Studies, CSAZ, Iran maintains at least 20 to 30 large underground missile bases. Iran believed these underground cities could withstand attacks from the United States and Israel. Their strategy was straightforward. In the event of war, the missiles would remain safely shielded underground, only surfacing at the moment of launch before slipping back into concealment. So confident was the regime in this plan that it urged its people to prepare for a prolonged conflict lasting up to 5 years. Yet none of this unfolded as planned. On February 28, 2026, what was meant to be a stronghold turned into a nightmare. Within just 1 week, the Iranian army's underground headquarters turned into a living hell. The very tactic that was meant to guarantee safety. The burial of missiles deep underground became a fatal flaw. By anchoring their weapons in fixed subterranean locations, they transformed them into fixed targets. Worse still, the missiles had to surface to fire, exposing themselves at their most vulnerable moments. And when they emerged, US and Israeli aircraft were already patrolling overhead, ready to strike. But the mistakes didn't stop there. After a 12-day conflict in 2025, Tehran responded by relocating its facilities even deeper underground, rebuilding with the belief, now we are truly safe. Yet this only escalated the stakes, provoking the deployment of even more powerful bombs in subsequent strikes. The air assault that commenced on February 28, 2026, stood as a rare and overwhelming demonstration of American air power. The United States deployed 3 primary platforms from its strategic bomber fleet simultaneously, an occurrence almost unprecedented in military history. These included the stealthy B-2 Spirit, the supersonic B-1 Lancer, and the formidable B-52 Stratofortress heavy bomber. Key weapons used in the campaign included the GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator, MOP, the world's largest bunker-busting bomb, tipping the scales at 30,000 pounds. Only the B-2 Spirit has the capacity to carry this devastating weapon, capable of penetrating reinforced concrete and dense rock layers to obliterate underground facilities. Additionally, the GBO-31 Joint Direct Attack Munition, JDAM, a 2,000-pound precision-guided bomb, was employed to target tunnel entrances and surface infrastructure. Its use in Heria confirmed by video footage. Meanwhile, B-52 Stratofortress bombers launched strikes from across the ocean. These gargantuan aircraft, equipped with carpet bombing capabilities, methodically demolished tunnel entrances and the surrounding infrastructure by saturating large areas with munitions. President Trump described the B-2 Spirit operations over Tehran as a demonstration of shock and awe, underscoring the message that Iran's underground defenses and missile bases were thoroughly destroyed. The campaign marked a pivotal moment in aerial warfare, dismantling what Iran had long considered impregnable sanctuaries beneath the earth. The offensive was unleashed at full throttle, with no restraint. The attack unfolded in two decisive phases. Phase 1 involved relentless patrols by surveillance aircraft and armed drones that maintained constant vigilance above the bases. Any missile ramps or launchers that emerged were swiftly eliminated within minutes. No ramp had the chance to fire without being destroyed almost immediately. Then came Phase 2. Heavy bomber aircraft delivered precision strikes on tunnel entrances, exits, and critical support infrastructure using powerful bunker-busting munitions designed to entomb personnel and equipment deep underground. Admiral Brad Cooper revealed that more than 1,700 targets had been struck by U.S. forces in the Middle East over the span of this campaign. Open-source intelligence sources confirmed that a significant share of Iran's missile stockpiles and UAV munitions were obliterated. Yet, this was just the beginning. Iran suffered catastrophic losses in all of its most vital underground facilities. According to analysis from the Alma Research Center, Iran's 4 largest ballistic missile bases sustained severe damage during the initial 48 hours of Operation Roaring Lion. First at Korgo in Hormuz province, this MRBM base had escaped damage during June 2025 operations, but faced destruction of at least 3 support structures by March 1, 2026. The base includes underground launch silos, making these hits especially critical. At Isfahan, surface damage was significant. Despite partial rebuilding by June 2025, by March 1, 2026, at least one rebuilt structure was once again destroyed. Analyses from Lear spotlight a large explosion at a launch pad caught in operation, alongside substantial damage to the missile control building. Karamabad, situated in Loristan province, and already heavily damaged on the surface in June 2025, faced renewed airstrikes on March 1, targeting newly constructed tunnel network support points near the base entrance. This site too contains underground launch silos. Tris in East Azerbaijan province suffered severe bombardment in June 2025. Recent strikes in the last 48 hours focused on burying entrances and support points of the underground tunnel network under heavy bombardment. Satellite images from Vanter paint an even broader picture of destruction. At the Connor military complex, a ship was sunk in the harbor, nearby buildings demolished, drone-based structures completely obliterated, and aircraft shelters damaged or collapsed. The Shiraz South Missile Base, according to Lair's analysis, displayed a missile leaking fuel after sustaining damage amid several exploding launch pads, igniting a spreading fire in the canyon below. Thick reddish smoke and nitric acid fuel leaks were observed. The Kermanshah Missile Base saw tunnel entrances and surrounding roads pounded by heavy U.S. munitions. Remnants of bunker-busting bombs litter the area on both sides of the entrances. However, it's unclear if the tunnels themselves collapsed. Turning to nuclear infrastructure, the IAEA confirmed recent damage to the entrances of the Natanz nuclear fuel enrichment facility, but reassured that no radiological impact was expected. Meanwhile, the Isfahan Ghada missile facility became the subject of an announcement by the Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, signaling further developments yet to be detailed. Let's take a closer look at the massive GA ballistic missile production and storage hub located in Isfahan. This target was not just about destroying existing weapons, but aimed squarely at crippling future production capabilities. Similarly, the Desful munitions depot suffered severe secondary explosions following an airstrike, a clear sign that the site was heavily stocked with armaments. By March 3rd, satellite images confirmed that roughly a dozen missile bases had been damaged by airstrikes carried out by either U.S. or Israeli forces. These operations have predominantly been executed by the U.S. in southern Iran and Israel in the northern parts of the country. Now, let's delve deeper into the most dramatic aspect of this campaign: the underground military infrastructure. Analysts estimate that between 200,000 and 300,000 military personnel are deployed within Iran's underground bases. This includes elite Revolutionary Guard units, missile operators, technicians, air defense teams, command staff, and logistics personnel. To put that in perspective, considering Iran's total military strength is around 960,000 personnel, this means nearly one-third of Iran's entire military force is operating from beneath the surface. When bunker-busting munitions strike tunnel entrances and exits, those hundreds of thousands of troops become trapped underground. The collapse of these entrances cuts off fresh air circulation, severs supply and fuel lines, and makes medical evacuations impossible. Moreover, the communication networks are significantly disrupted, effectively isolating these underground units. They find themselves cut off from the outside world, unable to launch missiles, receive reinforcements, or evacuate personnel. This situation, where approximately one-third of an army is trapped in their shelters instead of being active on the battlefield, is unprecedented in modern warfare. The most concrete evidence of this lockdown's effectiveness is an 86% drop in missile launches over just 4 days. Iran evidently did not anticipate such a scenario. Their strategy had been straightforward. If attacked, retreat underground and then resurface once the danger passes. But this storm is relentless. Us surveillance aircraft maintain continuous 24/7 patrols overhead, detecting every movement instantly. Any door that opens, any vehicle that leaves the compound becomes an immediate target. Former U.S. Army missile expert Colin David describes waves of strikes targeting 2 or 3 sites at a time. After multiple assault waves, these missile bases lose their operational effectiveness entirely. Iran's once-thought missile city has morphed into a graveyard rather than a sanctuary. For hundreds of thousands of soldiers, technicians, and commanders, this is, quite literally, being buried alive. Meanwhile, the forces who remain on the surface face their own dire situation. They constitute an army without effective air defense, grappling with a fragmented chain of command and shattered logistics. Though they may number in the hundreds of thousands on paper and practice, they are left without coordination or effective capability. The U.S. employs a multi-layered intelligence network to identify and monitor these underground facilities. High-resolution imagery from commercial satellite companies like Planet Labs and Vanter provides clear views of tunnel entrances, support buildings, and access routes. These are supplemented by highly detailed data collected by us military satellites and reconnaissance aircraft. Signal intelligence and human intelligence sources add additional layers of vital information, ensuring comprehensive awareness of Iran's underground military movements and infrastructure. Intelligence and cyber operations play a crucial role in complementing the overall strategy. Admiral Brad Cooper of a Central Command made it clear during a briefing. Our goal is to target Iran's remaining ballistic missile launch pads to completely eliminate their ballistic missile capabilities. We are witnessing a steady decline in Iran's ability to launch attacks against us and our allies. The detection strategy is methodical and precise. Once air defense batteries have been neutralized, the U.S. and Israel deploy slow-moving surveillance aircraft and armed drones over known missile bases. Any movement, whether a launch pad emerging from a tunnel or a truck on the move, is detected instantly. Within minutes, fighter jets or armed UAVs are directed to engage the target. An analysis by Sam Lair of Planet Labs imagery highlights the effectiveness of this process. For example, on March 1st, satellite images captured a missile launch pad north of Isfahan that hadn't yet been damaged. The launch pad was spotted moving down the road. Nearby, a crater on the road indicated that a U.S. or Israeli aircraft had attempted to strike the vehicle but missed. The very next day, photos revealed heavy bombardment of the underground facility's entrances. This series of events reveals a clear pattern. Iran's attempt to move a launch pad was detected and initially missed, but the response the following day was a focused bombing of the facility's entrances. This narrative perfectly illustrates how the hunter has become the hunted. Iran had spent years preparing for this conflict, but made several critical miscalculations. First, they didn't anticipate that their air defenses would collapse so rapidly. The U.S. managed to neutralize most of Iran's air defense batteries within the initial hours of the operation. This collapse allowed surveillance aircraft and drones to circle freely over missile bases, turning every exit from underground facilities into a near-suicide mission. Second, Iran underestimated the sheer power and precision of bunker-busting munitions. The GBO-57 Massive Ordnance Penetrator, MAPE, is a colossal 30,000-pound bomb, designed to penetrate reinforced concrete and deep rock structures. Iran believed their facilities were deep enough to withstand such attacks, but they were mistaken. Third, Iran did not expect the operation to be so swift and launched simultaneously across multiple targets. Their strategy anticipated a long, drawn-out war of attrition lasting up to 5 years. However, the U.S. neutralized approximately 86% of Iran's missile capacity within just 1 week, completely shattering Tehran's timing and calculations. Fourth, decentralizing missile launch authority was insufficient to counter the physical destruction of launch pads. While Iran distributed launch authority to mitigate the risks from leadership losses, once the launch pads themselves were destroyed, authority was irrelevant. There was simply no place to launch the missiles from. Fifth, Iran did not foresee the rapid severing of critical sea and air lines of communication. They hoped to repair damaged bases and deploy spare missiles, but quick disruptions to transportation routes prevented any spare systems from being delivered to the front. Looking ahead, what will Washington's next moves be? Former President Trump suggested the whole operation could take about 4 weeks. Experts, however, point out several potential paths forward. One major scenario involves maintaining continuous pressure and air superiority to completely neutralize Iran's military capabilities solely through air power, without engaging in a ground operation. This is the path the current operation seems to be taking. Key strategic targets such as missile bases, naval forces, airfields, and nuclear facilities are already under heavy and sustained attack, further degrading Iran's ability to counter or retaliate. The operation is fast-moving and synchronized, demonstrating a level of precision and effectiveness that has significantly altered the calculus of conflict in the region. Let's break down the possible scenarios in dealing with Iran's military stance. Scenario 1 is a direct military strike aimed at Iran's capabilities. Scenario 2 involves regime change. This means supporting internal opposition groups, arming the Kurds and other ethnic minorities, and increasing economic pressure to push the regime toward collapse from within. There are even allegations that the CIA is arming the Kurds, indicating that this approach may be underway. Scenario 3 is about forcing Iran to come to the negotiation table by weakening its military capacity sufficiently. Analysts from Brookings suggest that while an agreement is possible, achieving actual regime change would be very challenging. Scenario 4, known as the degrade strategy, aims to permanently destroy Iran's attack capabilities, irrespective of whether the regime changes. This involves rendering nuclear facilities, missile production lines, and military infrastructure irreparable. No matter which scenario unfolds, it's clear that Iran's current military posture is unsustainable. Already, 86% of its missile capacity has been neutralized. The country has effectively lost its navy, its air defenses have collapsed, underground forces are trapped, and logistical lines have been completely severed. The most critical and sensitive part of this operation targets Iran's nuclear facilities. The International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, has confirmed damage to the entrances of the nuclear fuel enrichment facility in Natanz. Additionally, Reports indicate that the nuclear complex in Iraq and facilities in Isfahan have become non-operational. This approach marks a major shift. What years of nuclear negotiations and diplomatic pressure could not stop. Kinetic actions are now attempting to prevent Iran's nuclear weapons capability. Back in June 2025, the Midnight Hammer operation had struck Fordo. But Iran rebuilt the facility. This time, however, the objective is different. The plan is to not only destroy the facilities but also permanently damage entrances, tunnels, support infrastructure, personnel, and production capacity to a degree that makes any rebuilding impossible. Over 40 years, Iran had dug into mountains, stockpiling thousands of missiles and deploying hundreds of thousands of soldiers underground, boasting that they could not be hit. Yet, in just 1 week, everything changed dramatically. Tunnel entrances collapsed. Missile launchers were destroyed as they came to the surface. Air defenses were neutralized. The Navy was dismantled. Airfields were bombed, and logistical lines were cut. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers, a full 1/3 of the army, found themselves trapped underground. Those outside the tunnels faced a broken chain of command, no air defenses, and collapsed logistics. The result: an army that exists on paper but lacks any coordination capability in practice. Iran's missile cities strategy, once touted as an impenetrable shield, will be remembered as their greatest vulnerability. The Wall Street Journal described it as a fatal mistake born of hubris. Military expert Sam Lair summed it up succinctly. What was once mobile is now stationary and much easier to hit. Missile cities have turned into graves, and the operation is still ongoing,